Okay, I'm going to finish up on chapter 20 really quickly, and then I will move on to chapter 21. Chapter 21 actually has, it's longer, and it has 3 different slideshows. So I told you that there were a few questions about the spleen. Remember, what the spleen does is filter the blood, but its role is different than the kidney. It's filtering the blood to clean it. Well, that's like the kidney as well, but it's filtering the blood to remove old, damaged red blood cells and recycle them. And the same thing, it does the same thing with platelets and even white blood cells. But if it ever becomes infected, it can rupture. Or if it ever ruptures because of like a car wreck or something like that, there may be a reason to have a splenectomy. And a splenectomy or spleenectomy, I don't care how you say it, is surgical removal of the ruptured spleen. And once that happens, what has to take over is the liver and the bone marrow. Now, there is a specific question where you have to know that. The liver and the bone marrow will take over the functions of the spleen if the spleen has to be removed. Okay, I said I would talk to you a little bit about Malt, mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, which is located in mucous membranes throughout the body. And it's just lymphoid tissues that protect us from pathogens. So there's going to be Malt in the respiratory tract. They are called tonsils. The malt in the intestines are called Peyer's patches. And then there's the appendix, which is also in the intestines, but it's different. It is attached to the cecum of the large intestines. The Peyer's patches are more, they're like patches that are scattered throughout the intestines. But these are all collections of lymphoid tissues. The tonsils are named for their location. The palatine tonsils are at the posterior end of the oral cavity. In other words, they're at the back of, like if you open your mouth, you can see them. Okay, they're the largest of the tonsils and most often infected. Then we also have lingual tonsils at the base of our tongue. We have, I'm going to move down to the bottom, Tubal tonsils, which surround the openings of the auditory tubes into the pharynx, which means the auditory tubes is your ear tubes. And then the pharyngeal tonsils are also called the adenoids. They're located more in between, like your they're closer to your nose, your nasal cavity. Okay, so they're higher up. They're more superior than the other superior, as in up. Than your other tonsils. But tonsils can get infected because they have epithelial tissue that forms tonsillar crypts, and those crypts can trap a lot of pathogens. And so if they become inflamed or infected too much, it's like not worth it to have your tonsils, so that they may remove your tonsils. Now, this is a side view, a lateral view, showing where the adenoids are, the pharyngeal tonsils, which are they're. I think this may be wrong. Hold on a minute. Okay, so the palatine tonsils are in the back of your throat. You can see these when you open your mouth wide. The lingual tonsils are at the base of your tongue. And then you have the tubal tonsils, which are not shown here. The pharyngeal tonsils are actually, they should, I think this might be the tubal tonsils, and then the pharyngeal tonsils are more up here near your nasal cavity. We should find a picture. I'm so sorry. Here. Okay. They're not showing the tubal tonsils. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this really fast because it's important. We're going to do a Google search of the tubal and pharyngeal tonsils. And let's look for images. Okay, this is a side view. I hope this one's good. And so it shows you the lingual tonsils, the palatine tonsils right here, the pharyngeal tonsils, which are here, and they don't have the tubal tonsils. So what I'm thinking is that the tubal tonsils are just not very large. Let's see. Okay, here's another picture. Come on, open bigger. I'm sorry. This isn't worth all the time I'm taking with it. The lingual tonsils are under your tongue at this area. The palatine tonsils are here and here. You can see those when you open your mouth really wide. The tubal tonsils are found here, and then the adenoids are up here in this area. I think that does make it clear that the pharyngeal tonsils may look like they're close to your ears, but they're really in your nasal cavity, in the upper part of your nasal cavity. So the picture just, it's just where we're looking at it from the side. This one down here is a good picture too. And you can take your time and search different images just to make sure that you have a good understanding. But the main thing is that you know the names, and that really the three most important ones are going to be your lingual tonsils, your palatine tonsils, and then your pharyngeal tonsils here, okay? Let's go back. And remember that the pharyngeal tonsils are the adenoids also. The Peyer's patches are clusters of lymphoid follicles in the small intestine. And then we have the appendix, which is an offshoot of the first part of the large intestine. It functions kind of like Peyer's patches. And the appendix is down here. The Peyer's patches are in the small intestines. The large intestine goes up and around and down, and the small intestines are in the middle, all folded up in there. The thymus is is largest when we're smaller, and that is because it helps to build up our immune system. And that's it for this. Okay, so now let's move on. We've got enough time to do a little bit from chapter 21. Let's see, go back to week 3. And the chapter 21 slides. We'll start with chapter 21A. And again, I'm not going to go over all of it. It's just when I see something that I know I asked about, I'm trying to give you little hints. Okay, so this is the immune system. So we're going to concentrate on two parts of the immune system, the innate defenses and the adaptive defenses. The adaptive defenses are what we call immunity. This is what we're working with when we do vaccines, and when we become immune to something that we've already had, some kind of infection or viral or bacterial infection that we've already had, and we become immune to it. That's the adaptive defenses. The innate are defenses that defend against any pathogen. It's not specific. Okay, so we have the innate or non-specific defense system, and it's the first and second line of defense against any pathogens. The first line of defense are the skin and the mucosa, which would be, the mucosa would be like, for example, the mucosal lining inside of your nose and nasal cavity and your throat, any of the openings to the outside, like your urethra, in the female, the vagina, in the rectum, any of the openings to the outside that are lined with mucous membranes are going to be the first line of defense against pathogens. We have mucus in our respiratory tract that tries to catch the pathogens, and then we have cilia that line the cells of our respiratory tract that sweep all of that mucus and all of those pathogens up and out of our airways so that our lungs won't get infected. The second line of defense in the innate or nonspecific defense system are antimicrobial proteins, and they reside in certain fluids, phagocytes and other cells. Phagocytes would be white blood cells like monocytes and neutrophils and basophils and eosinophils. Well, they're not all phagocytes. Neutrophils and monocytes are phagocytes, okay? But they are part of the innate defense system. They attack against anything foreign. They don't attack against specific, specific types of pathogens. Okay, I'm looking at my time. Okay, other cells which inhibit the spread of invaders, and inflammation is part of the second line of defense. The inflammatory reaction, the cardinal signs of inflammation, you may know those: redness, heat, swelling, and pain. Those are all part of the innate defense system, and the innate defense system prevents a lot of disease and infection. But then sometimes we need a third line of defense, and that is the adaptive or specific defense system. And that is going to attack a particular specific foreign substance, so it takes longer to react than the innate defense system does. It takes a little bit of time to build up enough immune system cells, lymphocytes, to actually attack and destroy the particular substance. But it is specific. So we have cells that specifically will attack the Streptococcus bacterium that causes strep throat, or the Staphylococcus bacterium that causes skin staph infections, or MRSA. It's against specific pathogens. Each immune cell, has a specific pathogen that it will attack. Let's move on. So that's the differences between the innate and the innate and the adaptive defenses. This is just a little chart you can study, and it just shows you all of the examples of the innate defenses and the adaptive defenses. It breaks up the adaptive defenses into humoral immunity. Humoral immunity is the immunity found within the blood, and the B lymphocytes are going to be the ones that produce antibodies that are found in your blood that will attack antigens. Antigens are just little pieces of pathogens that are recognized by your B and T lymphocytes. And then T cells are involved in cellular immunity. They're going to destroy infected cells, or they're going to destroy pathogenic cells directly, like a cell that's infected with a virus, or a cancer cell, or a bacterial cell that has entered your body. The T cells are involved in that cellular immunity, whereas the B cells are involved in the humoral immunity. This is going to be where we talk about antibodies. Okay, so the innate defenses, we talked about the skin. Some things you may not know about the skin are that the skin is acid. In the pH of the skin is an acidic pH, and some of the secretions on the skin, acid is very good at handling a lot of pathogens, particularly microorganisms. And then the enzymes, like in your saliva, you have lysozyme. You have enzymes in your tears, which is talking about lacrimal fluid. in your respiratory mucus, and you have enzymes in your stomach, and a lot of those enzymes can kill microorganisms. So it's not just the skin as a physical barrier, but there are chemicals on your skin and in your mucous membranes that can help destroy pathogens.